What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. The blue CB550 is now with the customer, so it's time to switch gears and jump on the CB450 we have here in the shop. So this is a customer bike, 1974. This bike has been sitting for a couple of years. Somebody did a restoration a while back. Customer rode it for a good while and then parked it, and it's kind of sat for, I think, like 2 years, 3 years. So it's really in pretty decent shape overall. We just need to get it back up into running conditions. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to hook up the battery, and I'm going to start to kind of check some of the overall systems, make sure our starter system's working. I need to finish the installation of this PAMCO electronic ignition. The installation was started and then stopped at some point. I don't know how far they got. So I'll probably need to just start from the beginning and make sure that the actual timing unit, the points plate and everything is in the right position, and just basically start from scratch with that to make sure it's all installed properly and the engine is timed properly. Then we are going to probably spray some fuel down the carbs, see if we can get it to pop and bang, and then typical will it run style go into cleaning out the carbs because I know they're gummed up, doing a valve adjustment, some general maintenance. We're going to need to put a new caliper seal and that kind of stuff in there as well. So I won't be able to finish the bike today because I am going to need to order some parts, but we can at least get started and hopefully get this thing running. Got the battery hooked up. I'm going to go ahead and pull off the gas tank. It's empty and kind of loose anyway. We'll have to replace those fuel lines. We're also going to rebuild or potentially replace the petcock as well. Put it in a safe place over here so we don't get it scratched up or anything. I'm also going to go ahead and pull off these side covers as well, just so that we can gain access to the air filters, and I don't want these things to get scratched up or anything. Now that we got the side cover and the gas tank out of the way, kind of see the carbs a little bit more. These are Magunis, so these are not factory carbs, which we knew that going into this. These fuel lines that are on here are rock hard because these are not the proper like ethanol rated fuel line. So we're going to replace those with the actual like 5.5 millimeter black OE Honda line. That should be perfect. Drains and everything look decent. They look like they're just gummed up. I honestly think we're going to be able to just pull them apart, give them a really good clean, blast out all the passages and everything, make sure they're jetted properly for these pod filters, and put them back together. So that's going to be the plan for later. Right now I'm going to pull the, let's wait for the air filters. Let's go ahead and dive into this electronic ignition a little bit. So let me do a little bit of digging and see if I can figure out at what point in the installation it was stopped. That way we can kind of figure out what to do next. So I've been diving into the electronic ignition, figure out where we're at. Looks like the actual points plate and everything is installed. I haven't actually double checked if the timing and stuff is right, but we'll do that here in just a little bit. The wiring, it was just kind of wrapped together, though, like the wires were just kind of twisted and then it was taped around. I'm going to go ahead and run kind of an OE style bullet connector on there, just because I kind of prefer to do it that way. So we are going to go ahead and wire them up. I know it's going to be black, which is going to be the power from our coils is going to go to red, and then I've got to double check the wiring diagram for if white goes to blue or if white goes to yellow, and then we'll kind of just basically hook these three up with bullet connectors, and then we'll start to route all of this. There is this one black wire hanging out back here that needs to be grounded, so I'm just going to put like a little ring terminal on there, and then we'll find a nice good kind of frame ground to run that to. Worst case scenario, I can run an additional ground because the negative side of the battery is right there, but we'll find a good ground for that in a minute. So I'm going to throw bullet connectors on these 3 wires, and we'll go from there. Electronic ignition wiring should be all done. It's got the box kind of hidden back here. The side cover and stuff will cover it. We'll tidy up all these wires and stuff, but what I want to do now is actually just spray a little bit of fuel down the carbs and we are going to see if this thing gives us a few pops and bangs. If it does, then we know that we're getting spark and everything's good. I can go through, pull the carbs off, clean them out. Once it's fully clean and the bike is up and running, we will verify our timing using a timing light, and I'll show you guys that process when we get there. But first thing I want to do is just turn this on. Don't need a ton. Let's see what we got. That's exactly what we were looking for. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull the carbs off, and we will give them a really good clean out, and then we'll start to like replace the fuel lines. I am going to run it just off my auxiliary fuel tank whenever we come back, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, so let's pull these carbs off. So to get these off, I should be able to just unscrew the top here. Depending on how stuck these slides are, this should pop up. Yeah, these carbs are, oh, they're so gummy. I won't even let the slide go up. Let me see if I can just spray some cleaner around there. Just trying to see if I can break up a little bit of If this doesn't work, I'll just take the carbs off with the slides in place. We should be able to do that. So let me work on this a little bit, see if I can get it freed up. There we go. Just needed a little bit of movement with a soft screwdriver. Don't go ramming a screwdriver in there. You're gonna start marring stuff up, but just to get the slide free. Yeah, a little bit of gunk around here, but really not too terrible. So we should be able to undo this side. And the little guy comes right out. So we'll just repeat that on the other side, and then we'll go to the bench and clean these up. Other carb came off nice and easy as well. I'm gonna go ahead and put my little baking sheet under here to keep all our little parts and pieces from rolling away. Start to pull off some of these little vent lines. They're really, really crusty. Guess not crusty, I would call it rock hard. We'll go with petrified, how about that? Oof. So these these floats have come apart. This one is completely stuck on the side. Yeah, these are totally stuck in here. It is gummy. He did actually bring the stock carbs too. So we can play around and see if we need to do that instead. But these are definitely going to need an ultrasonic clean. So let me fire this thing up. This one's free, as you would expect, but this one's also stuck. Will not slide over that pin. So we're gonna have to let it soak in the ultrasonic cleaner for a while and see if that will free it up for us. Oof. I don't know if you guys can see the main jet on this guy is just filled with like black tar. So yeah, that's gummy. So this guy was not going to run without a good clean, but that's all right. That's why it's here. So I'm gonna take these apart just a little bit more, probably pull the mixture screws out, get them ready to soak in the ultrasonic cleaner once it's heated up, and then we let them soak and see how they come out. Everything's soaked for about 20 minutes. Let's see how the stew looks. All the gunk came off the floats, nice. Yeah, they look pretty good. Got a little thing of water over here. I like to dunk stuff in afterwards and kind of get the residual carb cleaner off and just give them a little wipe down afterwards. Not bad. I don't think these Magoonies had a ton of miles on them. I think it was just kind of run for a while and then parked, and ethanol fuel had its way with it, unfortunately, but we're doing our best to get them back. So I did go ahead and soak the petcock in here too. I need to get the rebuild kit with the little O-ring and stuff, but figured since I had this thing heated up and running, I might as well use it to clean up the petcock, which it looks like it did a good job. A little bowl for it. Yeah, not bad. Tube and everything looks good on that. Got the slides. Slides cleaned up really nice. The main thing I'm curious about is the jets, how those cleaned up and if they're in need of some additional soaking. So let's pull one out and see. So I have this little jet cleaning kit that's got all these different sized little rods, we'll call them, that you can use for this purpose to kind of stick through and get some heavy gunk out of some jets. And we'll use a little compressed air too in a minute. Nice. Cool, everything else looks like it cleaned up. Let's see how the bodies turned out. Oh, actually, let's go for a bowl first. Not bad. Man, this ultrasonic cleaner does wonders. If you remember how just caked on and all that varnish and stuff just dissolves away. We're going to reuse this gasket because I do not have a replacement for it. I'll look and see if replacements are easy to come by because we have to order some parts of this bike anyway, and we can swap that out. But actually it looks like it's in decent shape, but we'll see what's available. Pull another bowl. Sweet, this one cleaned up nicely as well. Take a little paper towel and get a little bit of the stuff that's stuck on there, but not bad. Now for one of the bodies. did a pretty darn good job to me. Sweet. We can throw these back together. I decided before I'm going to put the carbs on, I want to adjust the valves and also the cam chain tension. So on the CB450s, it's a little bit unique compared to like a 550 or even a 350. I believe it's going to be the same on the 500T, the twin cylinder 500s. So basically we're going to do the cam chain tension first. For that adjustment to work properly, the engine needs to be in exactly the right place. And that place is 90 degrees past top dead center on the compression stroke of the left cylinder. So the best way to find that is you have little timing marks on the side here. If you pull your kind of alternator stator cover off, you have the timing marks. There's an LT and a T mark that are 180 degrees apart. LT is top dead center for left cylinder, T top dead center for right cylinder. So the basically we need to make a mark that's 90 degrees past that. So if you think about LT mark being at 9 o'clock on a clock, then you have the T mark at 3 o'clock. You need to make a mark right at 12 o'clock. That 12 o'clock mark, we then need to match up with the little timing kind of arm that's on the crankcase. But we need to make sure that's on the compression stroke. So we turn the engine over with the spark plugs out, put your finger over the spark plug hole until you feel the compression come out of the left cylinder. Then you probably have another quarter or eighth of a turn past that to line up the mark you just made. And then that is 90 degrees past top dead center on the left cylinder. Then you can undo your little lock nut, 10 millimeter, and then pop loose the main nut. You might hear it actually click into place as it auto adjusts, and that's it. And then you can just tighten it back down and tighten your lock nut. So that is the cam chain adjustment. Now let's move on to the actual valve clearance. So to give you the quick rundown of how I'm going to adjust the valves, basically these are adjusted by, there's actually kind of like an eccentric, I guess you'd call it. So there's a lock nut with a little piece right here with a tab on it. That actually rotates and changes your clearance up and down. So in the back here, I know you won't be able to see it, but there's the actual lobe of the cam, the kind of follower on there, and basically what we need to do is make sure that that clearance is set properly. I'm going to personally set this one to 4,000s, which is a little bit more than factory. I think factory is as tight as like 1 point something, and I think that's just a little bit too tight. So what I'm going to do is go with 4 and then kind of fluctuate a little bit, maybe on the tight side of a 4. There is a good video by the guys over at Common Moto, I think is what it's called, that kind of go a little bit more in depth on this, but just to kind of tell you guys what I'm doing. So first of all, we need to get the engine into the right place, which is top dead center compression stroke on the left cylinder. So we're going to be looking for that LT mark. Here it is, but I didn't feel any compression, so we'll keep going. There you go. I got compression, and then it's gonna not just stop right there. It's gonna go, and it's gonna go past the mark. You can see right, boop, see how I just went past it? So what we need to do is, I have this little block here that's gonna allow me to rotate this just to the right position, and then I'm gonna try and get it to where I can use this little block to hold it. So I went a little too far. LT, right there. I can go back a little bit. So that is the LT mark lined up. Now we can go in here with our feeler gauge, see how far off we are. It feels decent, but a little bit loose. 14 mil on our lock nut. Big flathead. And we can kind of turn it. So that is super tight now. And then if I turn a little to the left, now it's loose. So you're just turning it until it's just trying to grab and drag your feeler gauge. Then we can come back, making sure we don't lose our adjustment while we tighten the lock nut. And that's it. Now we can also do the intake valve, and the little adjuster is right here. So same 14 mil to loosen the lock nut. Reach in here, a little eccentric. Right there. Verify our adjustment and change. Perfect. Now we'll repeat those exact same steps for the right cylinder. Carbs back on. We have an auxiliary fuel source hooked up. So we should, in theory, be ready to fire it up. Kept the side off here because I have my timing light hooked up and I want to check and make sure that our timing is on point. Oh, puns. Okay, so that's on. We probably need to give it some choke. These chokes are separate. There. Key is on, ignition's on. I think we're good. Let's hit the button. It's probably going to squirt a little bit of oil out over there, which is why I have the drain pan on here. Start from this side so I can keep giving it a little bit of throttle while I check the timing here. Timing is way off. Whoever installed that points cover didn't quite get it adjusted properly, so let's fix that, and I bet it'll run just a little bit better when it's timed properly. Had jumped to the next day because I didn't have time to mess with it last night, but the timing was way off, like probably 20 degrees off. That's why we were getting some pops out of the carbs and everything. So I've spent the last, honestly, probably hour plus getting it dialed in. And how I did that is using a timing light. You start, with, I don't think it really matters, left or right side. And you're just trying to get the fire mark to line up when the bike is running with the mark that's on the crankcase. And then you can adjust the entire points plate. Ideally, according to PAMCO's instructions, it should be pretty close and you can just fine tune it. That was very far from the truth. So I had to advance the plate, and I basically kept swapping back between the left and right cylinder to where it was pretty close on both with the main point adjustment. Then I had to go in and fine adjust each cylinder individually by moving the actual pickups, the little like circuit boards on here, which took probably 15 times of taking the advancer off, moving it a little bit, testing it, moving it a little bit, and you're kind of chasing your tail a little bit because you move one and the other one moves a little bit. And so long story short, I got it sorted now. We should be able to fire it up and let it run for a little bit. I put the timing cover back on because it does squirt oil out, so let's see. It's running nicely on both cylinders now. Bit of smoke on this left cylinder, but it's not a ton, and honestly I think that'll clear up as the bike just continues to warm up and run a little bit. It has been sitting for a while, so that's not entirely unexpected. But I'm gonna let it kind of sit here. I'm gonna turn my fan on, let it run for another minute or two, and then we will call the ignition done. I'll kind of zip tie all the wires and stuff out of the way, and then we'll move on. So now that we got the bike running well, I am going to go ahead and drain the oil. And this particular customer, when the last time they rode the bike, they said there were some issues with the clutch. So what we're gonna do is actually pull this side cover off while we have the oil drained, give the clutch a good inspection. I'm gonna measure the springs and everything to make sure there's nothing crazy worn out, or see if there's any replacement parts or anything that are needed for the clutch. We are going to replace the cable. It looks like it's the original cable, and it's very dry and cracked and pretty rough. So for the cost of a cable, it's worth doing. This oil is going to be very warm. I'm going to try to get this plug out of here as quick as I can. Oh, I'm going to drop it, grab it real quick. Okay, only a slight mess. I like draining oil when it's warm anyway because it obviously comes out a lot quicker. All right, we're gonna let that drain for a little bit. To get this side cover off, I am gonna go ahead and pull this side exhaust, which means I need to pull off the side foot stand. We're gonna pull off the kickstart, and then it's gonna be these all around here. At some point, this engine has been apart before, and somebody has put all stainless steel Allen screws in here. So it's going to be much easier than 50-year-old JIS screws that always get really stuck. So I trust these will come out pretty easy. Put this in a nice safe spot over here on the rag. Here's our clutch. So we're going to pull these 4 screws out. That's going to be the actual springs, and then we're going to pull all the steels and friction discs out as well, just to inspect them, make sure we have enough material and everything left. So if you've never seen a motorcycle clutch, you can pull these out. There's a little retaining washer, and then the spring itself. So there's 4 of these individual springs, and these springs do have a specification for how long they're supposed to be. Eventually, after years and years of riding and compressing, they can be a little bit too short. So we will look up, I don't know offhand what the spec is, and measure these just to make sure they're still within tolerance. If not, they're very inexpensive to get and replace. So go all the way around, pull them all out. Now that all of our springs are out, should be able to pull this out as a unit out of the basket, just like that. So there's a bunch of different steel discs like these guys, and then next in line is what's called a friction disc, which is this guy. So we're going to pull this over to the bench. We'll start to pull these apart and look them over and see if there's a good amount of material left and kind of the overall condition of this. So I wanted to walk you guys through a clutch inspection real quick. So the first thing I'm looking for is heavy rust on these steel discs. These have some rust, but they're really not bad. Truthfully, a couple of miles of riding would probably clean these right up. I'll probably hit them lightly with some Scotch-Brite since we have them out of the bike. I'm also looking for how much meat is left on these friction discs. So there is actually a measurement for this. So I have the manual pulled up here. For the friction discs, we're gonna do, my caliper is in inches. So let's see, we're looking for between 135 and 141 thousandths of an inch. If it's less than 122 thousandths, then they should be replaced. So we're going to measure them, and we're doing 140 thousandths, 140, just checking to make sure it's kind of even all the way around. So 140, 141 thousandths, which is the high value of standard. So I have no reason to believe that this clutch isn't new. So I would imagine when the person was in this engine before, they probably replaced this because it's measuring almost exactly what a brand new clutch would measure. Let's try another disc. Yeah, 140, 140, 140. So yeah, the friction discs are definitely on the newer end. They don't have a lot of miles on them. The next thing you can measure is the springs. So like I mentioned, years and years and years of compressing these springs can cause them to be a little bit shorter than they're supposed to be. Let's see, looking at the chart, clutch spring, they're supposed to be 40.1 millimeters or 1 inch, 575 thousandths, you know, just as they are right now. Serviceable limit, if they are below 3.94 millimeters, under, let's see, or under 1.55 inches. So these are measuring 1 inch, 550. Okay, I think you got to make sure you kind of go across the flat and don't get stuck underneath. So we'll go right here, 1 inch, 557. And we're looking for, if it's under 555, they should be replaced. So it's close. 557, 558 on that one. This one, a little bit better actually. The same. 1 inch, 555. It is right at the limit. I might suggest, since we're in here, that we swap out to some new springs. Yeah, 1 inch, 554. So they are measuring right at the limit. If they were new, they would be all the way up here at 575, which would be quite a bit more than they are now. So I'm going to talk to the customer and see if he wants to roll with these, or if he wants me to go ahead and order some springs, because they are 1/556 right there. So that's 1/1000th of an inch over what the replaceable spec is, which is pretty much right at needing to be replaced. So I'm going to suggest we throw some new springs in here. I'm going to go through and inspect the rest of these. Everything else seems to look pretty darn good, so I don't have any reason to think that we have any other problems. Well, that's where I'm going to call it on this one, because we are going to order some springs, order the new clutch cable, a couple other little things that this bike needs. So we'll be waiting for parts for a couple of days, and instead of making you guys wait, I'm just going to edit this into kind of part one, and then when we get all the parts in, I'll kind of make a part two of finishing this bike up. Hopefully the weather will be nicer by then, and we'll be able to ride it around a little bit and make sure everything checks out like it should. So I appreciate you guys watching as always. I hope you guys are staying safe, and I'll see you soon.